Simon, in the world of boxing, Stuart Pearce is with us this lunchtime. In the world of boxing, is Amir Khan going to end up in a bit more soapy bubble? Because right now, he hasn't really had the best of weeks, has he, to put it mildly? Amir Khan, the latest one to be right at the heart of headlines that boxing does not need. It emerged this week that he failed a drugs test after his fight with Kell Brook, a fight up in the northwest that you and I, Simon, attended. On that night, Kell Brook won it and won it well. So Amir Khan under all sorts of pressure. Yesterday, the same Amir Khan was a guest on Drive with Darren Bent and Andy Goldstein. This was just a flavour of it, a short exchange between Khan and Goldstein.
When was the first time that you learnt you had failed a drugs test?
I got told about it probably 6 months after, 6 to 9 months. I think 6 to 9 months after the fight.
After the fight.
After the fight, yeah.
So the fight was in Feb.
Yep. So it was well after that. Like,
so we're talking like August, September.
Yeah.
Even though you kind of said they told you in April.
No, I did get told in April. I didn't know nothing about it. You know. So and that's why. And it was a bit of a shock to me. And then when it was announced, I didn't know they were going to announce it like that. You know. And I was fighting it because I did say to them that, look, I'm a clean fighter. And that's why I kept fighting it. And then I was at an interview and then boom, it comes out and it gets announced on social media. And thinking about it, it gets announced like literally a year after the fight.
Could any one of your team have been told and not told you?
No, because I mean, everything comes back to me, to be honest with you. I know that when we did find out about it, I told my lawyer and my lawyer was working on it. And working on how it was in the system and everything. And we was even giving them vitamins I took. I must have given them about 20 vitamins that I took. I give them all literally every supplement I was taking, checking all the proteins I was taking. Is there contamination? Is it not? I mean, see, one thing about us as well is that, look, we'll be, say, fight week, you'll be with your brother or friends or whatever, and they drink some water, just passes that, boom, you'll have a swig. You know, so it could be from anything, you just don't know.
We just don't know. He certainly didn't sound as if he knew. You can't know, because you can't tell us that Khan knew in April 2022. How do we know that from UCAD? Because it's in their report. Khan's up against it here, is he not, Simon? Boxing's up against it here, not for the first time in recent days.
Well, I think boxing is less up against it because what we've seen is that the process works, but the process needs to be more professionalised in terms of people that are working the British Boxing Board of Control and the level of expertise that's there. The investment in UCAD specifically for boxing needs to be greater. But Khan is in the cart here because I don't believe him. I don't believe that he didn't know. And when I listened to the interview with Andy Goldstein, I almost fell off my chair when I'm listening to a fighter tell Andy Goldstein that he didn't know when the test was taken. He didn't know. So how much attention have you been paying to the adjudication, the appeal process that you went through to be able to reduce the situation down from 4 to 2? You are going on air on a national radio station talking about a very serious subject matter that can potentially ruin your legacy, and you don't even know if it was a pre-fight test or a post-fight test. And then you discuss in the conversation that if it was a pre-fight test, then perhaps the fight shouldn't have even gone ahead. How do you square that circle in the minds of people that are saying doping is a huge problem in the sport?
Yeah.
The fighters themselves take it very seriously, especially the ones that are clean. And somebody that gets accused of the most heinous of crimes in boxing. The most heinous of crimes in boxing is to be called a doper, right?
Right.
You don't even know what test it was. We all know in this room. I know it was a post-fight test. You know it was a post-fight test. Adam Cattrall knows it's a post test. Everyone around sport, even Eddie Hearn now knows it was a post-fight test.
According to UCAD.
Right, according to UCAD.
Yeah.
It's a post-fight test that happened on the evening of the fight, as before they leave the venue after the fight. So why is Amir Khan suggesting he doesn't even know what test it was? And then you look at what Andy did was talk about the content of the PED in his system. And they talked about this ridiculous notion it could have come from a handshake. I'm not suggesting that Amir Khan has doped himself. I'm suggesting he's not answering the questions properly. And if he's going to come on a radio show and talk about it, he should at least know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And to suggest that ultimately it come from a handshake, because Andy said to him, there isn't clinical evidence to suggest if you had that amount in your system at that particular time, you needed to have been taking it for 4 to 6 weeks. How does that chime with your observation
Exactly.
of shaking somebody's hand or drinking out of a bottle that your brother may have had?
It's too vague, Stuart. It's too vague, isn't it? I know you've listened to that for the first time there.
Yep.
It's too vague. You'd robustly defend yourself if you were in the dock about this.
Well,
You remember every time you were drugs tested after a game?
Of course.
And it stands out in your mind, doesn't it?
Well, in football it happens very, very regularly. The players are drugs tested very regularly. The doping control come into the training grounds. If the players' names are pulled out, they cannot leave the eyesight of the dope testers. They'll sit next to them in the dinner hall. They're literally, in any meetings you go in subsequently, they'll sit next to them right the way through. So, but the bottom line is, as a sportsman, it stops with you. The buck stops with you. If you've done a drugs test in any way, shape or form, you know full well you can talk all around me trainer this, me coach that, whatever. The bottom line is, it's you all get suspended.
He doesn't, to be honest with you, I don't think he cared at the time because he wasn't going to fight again. He didn't have any intentions to fight again. So it becomes an almost incidental that he's been banned. Now all of a sudden, he's woken up to the potential consequence of people aren't going to let this sweep under the carpet. The mainstream media are interested in it. Boxing is becoming a big topic again. Shows like this are bringing it into the mainstream and not making it just about a very small world of boxing that gets confined to that little world.
Absolutely.
And what's happening now is people go, hold on a minute, you. If you did it then, did you do it then there? And did you do it then there? And he's misread the room. Now he's going to have to liven himself up a little bit and get himself more conversant with the situation he surrounds himself in. Because Jim, this is such a massive thing for boxing right now and a massive thing for Amir Khan. How can you literally volunteer to go on a radio show and not even know what... Now, this is not a mistake. This isn't somebody that's not very bright. This is somebody that was quite prepared to turn around and say on a radio show, I don't know what test it was. You know it was the post-fight test.
Of course.
If I know it was a post-fight test and it didn't happen to me... You must know.
Why don't you? It's significant it didn't come anywhere near us. But it's incumbent upon us, would you not agree, Simon, that a show like this is what we do. You can't stop pushing for the facts.
But this is what
because it's your job.
This is a show that gets 1,000,001+ listeners that is dragging boxing into a different space that it's been to before. That's why people like Eddie Hearn hear us and come back in and want to come in on a show because they want to put their point of view across because they know it's a loud voice. I'm not suggesting that we're the Jeremy Paxman of sports broadcasting. What I'm suggesting is it's now becoming a far more centralised issue, a far more mainstream issue because it isn't just locked away in the tunnels of YouTube boxing videos. It's now coming into mainstream broadcasting because this is a very big, valuable sport.
Here's one thing, as we go to the break though. It's agreed between us because of the way you and I go about it. We're not slapping each other in the back here. We won't let this go. But in spite of that, is boxing going to listen?
I think they will. I think with the change of the funding of the British Boxing Board of Control, that money comes from the broadcasters now and stops coming from the promoters. The next generation of funding comes from the broadcast deals. You're going to start to see a better level of expertise. Robert Smith, God love him, needs either better expertise around him or to step down and get people that can run this organisation. Yeah. And UCAD are going to be dragged kicking and screaming in their funding as well. And so are DCMS. People can get things done properly because this sport, I think, honestly, deserves a little bit better than what's currently being shown.
For sure.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.